Greetings, it's Iain from RTO. Welcome to Monday, start of the week, and we're going to kick off with part 2 of the Peter Hammill story, and today we're going to look at his albums from the 1980s. This is where he became really experimental in his music. This period there were some really good albums, and there's some albums I wasn't so keen on. But during the 1980s, Peter put out 8 albums, so we'll have a look. So, coming in at number 8 is his 4th of the decade, and it came out in 1983, and it is called Loops and Reels. So many Peters, I think Peter plays on here with I think he does most of the stuff. So the first track on here is called A Ritual Mask. This is one of those tracks that I really struggled with. It seems to be more noises than music. It was very hard to listen to. Critical Mass, quite long. It's sort of bitty. It's got no structures of the song. Yeah, I didn't get on with that one either. Then we have the Mobius Bass Loop. Struggled with this. It's just like a continuous loop. An Endless Breath comes now. Now this is probably the best track on here. It's got a little bit more structure. It does sound like a more well constructed song. In Slow Time, I really had to stop listening to this after about a minute. It just, as I say, did me head in. I didn't like it at all. My Pulse, 15 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. That's all I'll say. That it's in that 15 minutes there are little bits that are good, but there's a lot of filler in that track. The Bells is the last track. It's lots of noises. I just can't describe it. Quite frankly, this is probably the worst album Peter Hammill ever made. It's got no structure, just loads of noises. I just couldn't get on with it. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 1 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 7 is the 7th album of the decade, 15th overall, and it was released in 1986, and it's called And Close as This. Each track is done by Peter. He does all the work on it. So the first track is Too Many of My Yesterdays. Really nice song, nice structure. I do like the vocal on this. It's not a bad track at all. Then we have Faith. I like the additional keyboard on top of the piano on this track. Really works. Then Empire of Delight, which he co-wrote with Keith Emerson. It's not too bad. Pretty solid track actually. Silver, a little bit too long, but it's got a nice structure. Beside the one you love, though it's the same sort of length as Silver, it's a better song. It's got a better structure, and it works really well. Then we have other old cliches. I like this. It's got some strings on it as well. Gives it a little bit more depth and structure. Very good little song that is. Confidence. Now this is it's 6 minutes long. It's a piano and singing, but I think it's too long for it's really nice, but it just goes on a little bit. You know, when you're just sitting at the piano singing, you need to keep it to no more than 4 minutes, because you lose your concentration span like I did on that. Sleep Now's the last track. It's okay. Bit of a filler track for me. Pretty good album actually. There's a couple of bits on there that could have been shortened, but on the whole it's a really good listen, so I'm going to give this one a RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 6. This is the 5th album of the decade, 13th overall, released in August of 1983, and it's called Patience. This is the second album to feature what was collectively known as the K Group. That was Peter Hammill, Guy Evans, Nick Potter from Van de Graaff Generator, and then guitarist John Ellis of the Vibrators and Peter Gabriel's band. So there's also David Jackson on here, the Van de Graaff Generator, and Stuart Gordon on violin, and David Lord plays the Prophet on tracks 5 and 3. Labour of Love, really like this. Very good use of the drum machines on this one. Very good opening track. Film Noir, my favourite track on here. I love the guitar work on this from Peter. Very, very good track. Solid, great vocal, well put together. So, Just Good Friends. Interesting arrangement. I do like the guitar and the vocal delivery on Peter. It's just a little bit out there, but it works. Then we have Jeunesse de Henri. Great bass line on this. Absolutely brilliant bass line from Nick Potter. Very, very good. Drumming's good on this as well from Guy. Train Time, I really like the start of this. The keyboards and the drums, it had that very tinge of Van de Graaff Generator on it. Peter's vocals are really good. Now More Than Ever, the second favourite track for me on here. It's very new wave. I like the guitar sound on this. Comfortable comes next. Love the start of this. It's got some nice guitar work, and I like how it just changes its tempo halfway through. Patient is a pretty good song to the end of the album. Some nice delicate guitar work on that. Really strong track to end the album. Pretty solid from Peter, using that technology to its fullest, getting the best out of technology in 1983. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Coming in at number 5, he's 8th of the decade, 16th overall, and it was from 1988, and it's called In a Foreign Town. So Peter does vocals, guitars, keyboards, percussion, and Stuart Gordon on the violin. Hemlock is the first track. One of my favourite tracks on this album. It reminds me so much of the stuff that Peter Gabriel was doing at the time, that sort of tones and percussion. Excellent little track. Invisible Ink. I've always said this is Peter Hammill does David Bowie. It's so much in the style of David Bowie at this period. It's an excellent track. Psy Finance Revisited. My favourite track on here. It's got some lovely acoustic guitar on this, with a modern sort of drum beat, and it works. This book, really good track, nice beat to it, quirky, a little bit different, bit poppy, but very, very good. Time to Burn, very quirky start. Sounds like it's being played on a Fisher-Price piano, but probably wasn't. But it's very initiative, experiment, synthy pop track, really works. Auto. This is very 80s, but the technology, Peter knew how to manipulate it to his strong points, and it does work. It's a very good track, actually. Vote Brandex, a great little pop song. It's just, would have made a good single. Great vocal from Peter on that. Sun City Nightlife, some nice guitar, and that underlying percussion works well on that one. The thing, very subdual track, nice piano, stunning vocal from Peter, and there's a bit of it, like a clarinet on it as well. Excellent track. Undercover Names. It's got a bit of a cheesy keyboard from the 80s, but it's a pretty well done track. Although this album I don't think hasn't dated very well, I think it's a very, very good 80s album. He used the effects and the instruments very well, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.2. Okay, coming in at number 4, 6th album of the 80s, 14th overall, again from 1986, and it's called Skin. We've got Hugh Banton on the cello, David Coulter on didgeridoo, Guy Evans on percussion, Stuart Gordon on the violin, Peter does everything else, and then we've got David Jackson on saxophone as ever, David Lockhurst. First track is Skin itself. I like this, really strange track, but Peter's delivery of the vocal is great. After the show, my favourite track on here, I love that lovely keyboard sound that Peter does. There's another very good vocal from Peter. Painting by Numbers, a lot of these tracks just remind me of Peter Gabriel, that period as well. Really good track, well put together, great lyrics, really strong song. Shell, my second favourite track on this album. I think it's must do them quirky little keyboard runs in it. All said and done, really nice melody to this, and another excellent vocal from Peter. A Perfect Day. It's okay, I wouldn't say it's my favourite on the album. Four Pails, very gentle. I love the backing vocal on this. It's a lovely piece of piano work, really strong vocal. And the last track on here is called Now Lover, but the highlight of here is saxophone. Absolutely brilliant. A really good mixture of songs on here. It sort of goes back a little to his early days and modern sort of 80s sound. Pretty solid album, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.3. Okay, coming in at number 3 is the very first one of the decade. It was released in 1980 and it's called A Black Box. Peter Hammill does most of the instruments, David Jackson on flutes and saxophones, David Ferguson on synthesizer and tambourine. First track on here is called Golden Promises. Love this track, some really great heavy riffs on this. Excellent track. Losing Faith in Words, very new wave. I love the keyboard sound on that, very, very good. Jargon King. This is a track that I am not keen on. It goes backwards and it's noises and it's not that good, to be quite honest. Fog Walking. Love David's saxophone on this. I think he's a great sax player, as you know, and I think it really adds to that. My favourite track on this one is The Spirit. It's got a great guitar riff and it's that very early 80s sound. Very good. In Slow Time, again, this is much better than the other version. I just love the vocal on it, much better. The Wipe, another pretty strange backward sort of track, but it's sort of quite quirky. Then we have Flight. This is absolute epic. It's modern electronic music, a bit of prog thrown in there. It's the combination of new wave and prog and experimental stuff, and it really works. It takes the whole of side 2 up. Brilliant track. Although it has got a couple of weird tracks on it, that Flight is absolutely brilliant. I love that, along with The Spirit. So I'm going to give this album an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay. Coming in at number 2, his 10th album overall, the second of the 80s, released in 1981, and it's called Sitting Targets. Peter Hammill and Guy Evans is on here, with David Jackson, Maurice Pert and Phil Harrison. Breakthrough is the first track. Love the bass line here. Absolutely brilliant. Great vocal from Peter. My Experience is quite rocky. The guitar work on here from Peter is fantastic. Ophelia, one of the strange tracks, but there's some nice acoustic guitar on it and some synthesizers from Phil Harrison that sort of adds to it. It's a really little gem, that song. Emperor's Closed. Yeah, you can tell this is near enough a Van de Graaff generator, especially Guy Evans. No, Maurice Pert's on this one, sorry. Maurice Pert's percussion's on it. Got some great David Jackson stuff on there, absolutely wonderful. Glue. My second favourite on here. It's weird but wonderful. That's all I can say. Hesitation. My favourite track. Brilliant saxophone work from David. The great drumming from Guy on it. Brilliant track. Sitting Targets itself. An absolute belter of a track. Guy Evans is on fire. Brilliant stuff. Train Just Still has good combination of keyboards and pianos. I love how Peter does that with tracks. The keyboards and the piano always seem to work perfectly. Sign, some excellent work guitar on Peter. Sign, I mean, what I did. Sort of a post-punky sort of sound on here. Really good. Central Hotel. Great drumming on this. The guitar work is really good on that as well. And that was the last track. Not a bad track on this album from start to finish. Very solid. I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.8. So my number one is the third album of the decade, and it is called Enter K. It came out in 1982, and it's this little band that he had together called the K Group, and it is Peter Hammill on vocals and guitar, John Ellis on the guitar, Nick Potter on bass, and Guy Evans on the drums. Paradox Drive is the first track. Love the bass line from Nick Potter, one of his classics, and then you got Peter with his great keyboards as well. The Unconscious Life, probably one of my favourite tracks of the 80s by Peter. It's that lovely piano work, and it's got, I think, a great drum from Guy on this, absolutely superb. Accidents comes next. Nick Potter's bass line really drives this one on, and that engine room of old Van Graaff generator is very apparent on this. The great experimentation, absolutely wonderful. Some great guitar work here from John Ellis, fine guitarist, worked with Peter of Gabriel, was very good with that. That's an excellent track. Don't Tell Me, one of my favourite piano tracks by Peter Hammill all over. I love his vocal. She Wraps It Up, another extra track. The piano work is good, the vocals are good. It's just a real well structured song. Happy Hour, really good track this is. It's got a new wave feel to it. It's a bit of an epic. Everyone plays well on it, and it's the last track. Okay, what I like about this album is it's new wave again and progressive elements. Some fine drumming from Guy Evans on this, and this is why it's my favourite album. It's sort of a transition sort of album, but it's still got a lot of depth of his past. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. So there we go. There is Peter Hamill's 1980s album. Some very good albums in there. Next week, of course, we will move on to the 90s. Again, it's a very productive period for Peter, and again he changed the sound again. Okay, coming up next is A Perfect Side, and this is a viewer's request. I think it's Pulsar, and he's asked me to have a listen to Beggar's Banquet by the Rolling Stones. So join me for that later. Bye for now.